Hello there, what is going on, everyone? Today we are talking about 8 of the rarest Star Wars Legions items that you can get. These are expansions and limited edition things that are sought after, that are very, very rare, that sometimes collectors are going to be interested in, and things that you just sort of can't get anymore. Or for the most of them are ones that you can't get anymore. And we'll talk about each one here. Before you go too far into the video, though, I want to know if you can guess what number 1 is. I bet you can't, but because this is my own list, and of course you might have a different number 1 than I do. So give me maybe your top 3, and then let me know down in the comments section. And then once the video's over, see how many you got right. Because I will say this: I think your top 2 are going to be ones that I particularly chose due to their extremely obscure nature, and I'll explain why as we get there. But I'm going to talk about the items on this list, why they are rare, and how you can get them, or how you could have gotten them once upon a time. And to be honest, though, none of them really matter. This is more of just a collectible thing. There's no gameplay advantage to any of these particular items. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and count down the 8 rarest Star Wars Legion items out there. Also, if you guys are new here to the channel, there's still time left to enter to win the giveaway for that $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. Also, we're doing 12 Days of Life Day in December, so lots of giveaways going to be happening in December. Well, 12 to be precise. And all you have to do to enter to win, again, just be a subscriber, leave a comment. For this one, I would love to hear your guesses for the rarest of Star Wars Legion items. And I want to start off with one that is rare only because it's not out yet, but it has part of the Hobby Next program. That's Hondo ohnaka. You've probably seen a couple of people posting that they've got Hondo already. This is a limited edition promo box. Now, the box itself would be unique maybe to a collector's, because when Hondo does eventually come out, he'll have different packaging and all of that other stuff, right? So if you're a collector and you've got to have everything. If you're a completionist, you get with your local game store. They were encouraged to give this guy out with pre-orders of the core sets. I didn't end up getting a Hondo ohnaka. As actually, a matter of fact, this is the only one on this list that I do not have. And that's primarily because I wasn't trying to get another core set. I already have everything for Legion, and I just didn't need, and the core sets they're not exactly cheap, and there's 4 factions, and I play all of them, so it was one of those where I had to think, is the juice worth the squeeze here? Of course, if AMG wanted me to review any core sets, wink, wink, I'd be happy to do so. But in the absence of that, I decided, I'm not gonna pursue that. So this one I did not get. But of course, when the Weequay Pirates and their tank and all of that cool stuff does come out, we'll definitely be looking at this. So I'll have this guy at some point, but probably not in the limited edition box that he came in. And he's going to bring us, starting off this list, at number 8. Number 7, also part of the Hobby Next program, was the limited edition Grogu. This is one that was also only given out to select retailers, and if they had pre-ordered, for people who had pre-ordered the Mandalorian expansion, if you got Din Djarin and Grogu, you got another Grogu. This one was a little weird because while it was Grogu, you already had Grogu in Din Djarin's expansion, so you pre-ordering, the Mandalorian and Grogu, and you're getting another Grogu. But what makes this even more bizarre is the fact that you had 2 Grogus in the Mandalorian expansion anyway. So this was a third Grogu. There's absolutely no need for a third Grogu, but it is what it is, and it was a cute little way for them to give you something extra. And he's holding his little soup bowl, and he's another Grogu. So there's lots of extra Grogus, and the cool thing about having a lot of extra Grogus is that you can then choose to do hobby-specific things with them. Like, say, I'm going to go ahead and put this guy on, I have one of my Grogus in my lat, like standing in there looking out. He's I don't know why he's on an Empire vehicle, but that's where he is. So again, there's a lot of cool things you can do with Grogu. You can put one on a base of another miniature. You can put one on IG-11 if you want. You can put one on Mando's base. You can do all kinds of cool and fun stuff with your Grogus, however you want to do your Grogu stuff. But this one, again, limited time only. Now, granted, no gameplay advantage for this. There's lots of other Grogus, and honestly, he's so small, a lot of people wouldn't even know the difference. But if you were interested in getting all the Grogus, that's how you would have gotten that particular Grogu. Going back in time a little bit to a little time where the world changed for a while. We had a COVID lockdown. At the time, they were doing convention exclusives, and coming out to us at number 6 is the Luke Skywalker convention limited edition. He was supposed to be a convention exclusive, and he ended up being more of just a limited edition option that were sent out to local game stores. We weren't really doing conventions in 2020, not as they are now. And, at the time, they basically, gave all these stores a certain amount of Luke Skywalker miniatures. And a lot of them went up on eBay right away because at this time, we were starting to get more and more Legion exclusives and limited time exclusives and limited edition exclusives. And I don't think people realize how many of these Luke Skywalkers were actually going to show up. So while this one wasn't for a pre-order exclusive, this one was actually more of a big deal, so it was a little bit more sought after because it was Luke in his X-Wing outfit. And it's actually still to this day a very cool, very, very cool model. And it's a very cool pose for Luke because it's a version of Luke we don't really see. Now, this was the first alternate sculpt of the Commander version of Luke, so that was also a cool thing, having Commander Luke as a limited edition was awesome. And you could have him with his lightsaber. Actually, I built mine just with the blaster without the lightsaber because I figured yeah, he's got a lightsaber in every other pose, but how about I have a single one of them without the lightsaber? So I decided to go with that option since he was definitely more blaster first at this time in his career. But again, this one was stores had a certain amount of allocation of this, and once they ran out, then they were out. And this one's still again a great sculpt, has one of the sculpted bases on it, and has a whole lot of desirability for this type of expansion. Very, very cool expansion with the Luke Skywalker limited edition in his Hoth Luke outfit. So there we go at number 6. Number 5, also a limited edition. This was a whole bundle, right? This was their first attempt at AMG's first attempt at doing like dioramas and stuff for Star Wars Legion. This was the Strike Me Down battle pack. This is while there's 3 minis here, there's really only 2. It's a Jedi Luke and a Darth Vader in the Emperor's throne room. It's a little bit of a diorama piece. You've got Emperor Palpatine on his throne. You've got these 2 little kind of computer consoles, and you've got the back plane. That's the kind of Death Star, kind of the display of space behind them. What's awesome about this is that Luke and Vader are on legal Legion bases, but they come out, they kind of, they're special bases that mold into the diorama. You can take them out and you can actually use them. Palpatine, on the other hand, is instructed kind of to be glued to the base. Like, he doesn't have a base. He doesn't actually come off, but I made sure I never glued mine in because I wanted to use him. But then come to find out not too long after that they were taking Palpatine out of the game, and I wonder if that's why they decided not to actually give him a base of his own in here. Although he is sitting, and I imagine not too many characters could get away with sitting down during a game of Star Wars Legion. Although, outside of the Hutts, Palpatine absolutely could get away with sitting during a game of Star Wars Legion and still, like, use the Force to kind of carry him around a little bit in Professor Xavier style. I could totally see that. But this was a really cool set. This was also, great quality miniatures. Luke and Vader are kind of have their sabers locked depending on how you put them in the bases there. Very cool pack. But this one was limited time. This one was for conventions. It was a convention exclusive. So in order to get this, it wasn't just given to stores. This one was only given to conventions, where Asmodee was selling stuff. And I believe it was like 3. I think this was at Adepticon, Gen Con, and then at Essen during the 2022, I want to say. Oh no, this was 2023 convention exclusive. So during 2023, there were 3 conventions that you could get this one at, but you could only get it at those conventions. Or, of course, like a lot of these things show up on eBay not long after. That's another place that you could have gotten it. So this was definitely sought after, very cool one. We're gonna move on to stuff that's even more rare. So we're gonna take you back to 2019 Essen Spiel. Obi-Wan Kenobi, very, very rare, was only given out at Essen. There was very, very few of these made, and I don't know if the plan for this one was to make it available at more conventions or not, because it wasn't labeled as an Essen exclusive. It was labeled as a 2019 convention exclusive, but it was only at Essen. Or, of course, eBay if you're if you're so inclined. But this was a great sculpt for Obi-Wan. It had him kind of on the scaffolding, very much kind of depicted, one of several scenarios of Obi-Wan. When I looked at it, I thought this is Episode 3 Obi-Wan. This is him dueling Anakin. And we never did get to see like the other half of this with the Anakin kind of dueling Obi-Wan to return. Like, I hope we get that at some point. It would be a cool way to kind of complete the set. But I don't think it'd be fair to people who don't have this to then have only half of the set. So maybe they'd have to completely redo the whole thing. And I think that would be a cool 2-pack, is Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of dueling each other on Mustafar. And it'd be a cool diorama pack if they were ever thinking about doing that. But this also has a sliced in half B1 battle droid on the scaffolding there with Obi-Wan. And, well, there weren't any B1 battle droids in the duel at Mustafar, so I feel like this one's kind of open-ended enough that you can make it be just about whatever you want it to be, because there's plenty of metal railings and scaffolding and stuff, in the Clone Wars and anywhere on any of the various worlds that Obi-Wan went to. But it's a great sculpt, and at the time also you only had Obi-Wan kind of in that plastoid armor, so this was our first way to have one alternate sculpt at Obi-Wan. Although now we have the hard plastic versions with the new reprints and everything, so you got multiple sculpts. You have even more sculpts of some of these characters, but this one's still extremely rare in that it was only at one convention. Moving up, very, very, very expensive and nearly impossible to find, the Star Wars Celebration exclusive Vader. This one was from Star Wars Celebration at Chicago, also in 2019. A lot of stuff in here from 2019. This was the first exclusive that Legion ever had. As such, it was massively underproduced and was limited only to Star Wars Celebration as a vendor exclusive item. That's only one of the reasons that this is so very, very rare. I talked about this at length when this first came out. I would not have gotten one of these had I not been actually working demoing Armada and X-Wing and Legion for Fantasy Flight Games at the time that this was actually there. But oh my goodness, this thing went like hotcakes. So much so that people who went to the con exclusively to get this miniature still weren't able to get this miniature. One of the things that really made this so in demand was the fact that I think they only had 500 of them period. It was very, very few. I believe that was the number. And the problem is, when you're at Star Wars Celebration, there's a big thing that every booth has like little pins, and people always want to get their pins. And there's exclusive pins that you can only get from a booth if you spend X amount of money. And at the time, this was like $30, and you needed to spend $25 to get the pin from the Fantasy. And it was like an Ahsoka pin, no, it was a Sabine Wren pin that Fantasy Flight had at their booth. And so a lot of people were going from booth to booth. They just wanted the pin. They didn't want this. So a lot of people were buying this. They didn't even want it because this was the cheapest thing that you could buy that would also get you the pin. So by the time the gamers got to the booth, all of the Jedi Master Badge people and stuff had gotten there and bought up almost the entire supply for the day. So only a handful of these actually went out to Star Wars Legion players each day, which made this extremely expensive. It shot up to $500 the same day for an item that was $25, right? Ended up being like $1,000. I think I saw one on eBay for like $5,000 or something like that at one point. But again, massively rare. It was a resin sculpt. It was the first ever exclusive, and a lot of people were very unhappy with it. It was also the first time they did like a super fancy deluxe base as well. So again, really rare thing. Little thing about this too. I don't know, you probably can't see it in this image, but my Vader's missing a thumb. You probably wonder if that was, as a result of a duel with Luke Skywalker or something like that. It's like, no. Instead of just being a proper collector and leaving this like in a glass case somewhere, no, I actually played with him, and resin doesn't hold up as well when you drop it. Yeah. So I'm not going to be reselling this one anytime soon. Now, granted, he's like 98%, intact, but that, thumb, had to paint over it. It's a little nub right there. To be fair, it was a mechanical hand anyway, so right, so but yeah, it's a shame when something is like that rare. But at least, I mean, it does encourage me to play with rare miniatures just a little bit more, because you can't take it with you when you die, right? So gotta have some fun with your things while you have your things. So that's a thing. That is absolutely a thing. So all right, so that's number 3. How many of you had this guy at number 1? How many of you had this guy at number 1? Let me know if you thought this was gonna be number 1, because certainly he's a good candidate for number 1 most rare. I'm gonna make the case, because granted, 500 of these still went out, so there's still a whole lot of these that did eventually go out, but they were for obscene prices. I had heard a story, somebody said that some people were buying these and then throwing them out because they just wanted the pin. I don't think too many people were throwing stuff like this out. People would use it to trade or to barter or whatever, and so a lot of stuff just went on people's shelves, collectors and stuff like that. So there's very few of these actually in the wild, but there's probably even more of them on collectors' shelves, that aren't being opened. So, number 2 might surprise somebody. It's the original dewback base. The original dewback. Now, I'm using a weird image here. If you Google my dewback unboxing, there was a story here. Now, longtime Legion players knew all about this. It was called the Dewbackle. 2019 Gen Con. A couple of items came out early. The dewback was one of them. I picked up a copy of the dewback. I was going to bring it home and do an unboxing of it. I don't think, and they only had a limited quantity. This was an early pre-release. And during my unboxing, I didn't even realize it, but some people pointed out that, hey, the dewback, it came with this larger base. It came with the ATST size base. And I remember thinking, man, the dewback's going to be great. Now, funny thing is, I play tested the dewback, and people like privately messaged me. I'm like, dude, you should have freaking known better. And I'm like, well, I should have, but I was excited that it was something new, right? And so I didn't really think about it. Besides, the dewback does look really good on the ATST size base, because his body is so much bigger than this super tiny little, ATRT sized base. So I unboxed him with the full size base, no problem. And then all of a sudden FFG was like, oh, we sold dewbacks with the wrong size base. Stop the presses. And so all of the dewbacks had to be manually opened, repackaged with a replacement base in there, and then resealed and then shipped out to distributors and stuff like that. So caused a little bit of a delay with the dewbacks coming out. Now, the reason why I say that this one is even more rare is because this wasn't a collectible. This wasn't a convention exclusive. There were no reason for everybody to rush to the booth to buy this when it was coming out anyway, and people tend to want to, support their local game store. And also when you're buying it at a convention, now you have to get it home. Did you have enough room in your luggage for everything? This didn't make the cut for a lot of people. And also, you're paying full MSRP at the convention. Not everybody's like, so a lot of people are like, I'll wait, I'll get it from my store. They're going to give me, 5% off or loyalty rewards, or plus I'm just going to be able to support my local game store. So, not as many people picked up the dewback. And also what also makes it more rare is that everybody who else who got a dewback afterwards doesn't have the full size base, or has the correct base, but not the original oversized base, which is a cool thing. Of course, it's even more rare because nobody's allowed to use, if you had put your dewback on this base and remounted it, you would have had to have cut it off and rebased it. You're not going to be able to get away with saying, well, I'm running an ATST size base because that was what was in the box. Although that would be really funny. So yes, that is the case. The dewback ended up shipping originally with an oversized base for a limited pre-release at Gen Con, and was then quickly fixed. Let me know if you were at the only people who have this are the people who are at Gen Con and happen to pick up a dewback there. Not that many, because again, it wasn't a super in-demand item at the time. It was just an early release of something that was coming out, I think, in like 2 weeks. It was coming out very, very soon, so it wasn't even like that big of a deal. So, all right, we're going on to number 1. Even more rare than the dewbackle is a very limited edition item. There are only 2 of these in the world. And it's Clone Commander Crabbok, custom made and sent to me by Masters of the Fleet / Masters of the Force, MOTF. This was, and I know what you're saying. You're like, this isn't a real product. I'm like, well, you don't know that. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. So what this is this was a coordinated April Fool's video when it had been talked about that the Clone Wars was going to be coming to Star Wars Legion, but we hadn't seen any command or any previews for the Clone Wars for Legion yet. The Ken over at MOTF sent me this. He got with Mel Miniatures, who's done plenty of miniatures for X-Wing, Armada, Legion, all the Star Wars games, and had him sculpt a clone Commander Crabbok, who is sculpted in my likeness and was wielding lightsaber nunchucks, as is awfully fitting and appropriate. And Ken actually made like a custom box and also a unit card and command cards, and they made an entire expansion of this. And he made 2 of them, one that he could unbox and one that I could unbox. And the idea was that if we had a simultaneous April Fool's Day unboxing, then we would have 2 unboxings of Legion Clone War, the first Clone Wars expansion coming to Legion on the same day. And maybe the April Fool's joke would be a little more successful if there were multiple channels doing it. And as such, again, only 2 of these in existence. Although the miniature was available on Mel Miniatures shop over on Shapeways for the longest time until Shapeways shut down. I don't know if he still has that available, but it was a very cool item, and it still is a very cool item, and I still have it, and it is beloved. And yeah, very, very cool thing. So big thanks to Mel Miniatures and also MOTF for making that possible. And I know that some of you are like, that's not fair, that's not a real one. I get it. But this is my list, and I reserve the right to make zany choices from time to time. I hope you guys enjoyed the list, and let me know what rare limited edition alternate sculpt things you want to see in the future. Is there any really cool or obscure pose or alternate kind of version of a character that you think would make for a really cool limited edition release, like a spider maul or something like that? Let me know down in the comments section below, and you can also join our Discord and keep the discussion going there. I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and big thanks to my patrons. You guys are out of this world and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all, and always wash your socks.